Hey, I'm gonna replace my lateral link on my Mazda. Here's how you do it. I got the car jacked up on a jack stand. Now I'm gonna remove the wheel. That's how I know my lateral link is bad. We have to remove this cotter pin and bolt. Alright, these are 17 millimeter bolts. You should clean this off really well so that you can see the markings on it, and then you can put them back. Sorry, bug. You can put them back where they were. They'll line up with this little notch down here, and we know we're on the second one here, and there's one on the other side as well. Anyway, we'll get up in there and look at it, but clean that one off as well. Now I'm going to use my breaker bar and try to get this thing off of here. Millimeter bolt that's holding the anti-lock brake mechanism. So I'm going to disconnect that. Easier with a ratchet. I'm just going to set this aside. I'm not actually going to disconnect it. I'll just have this hanging over to the side so it doesn't get in the way. I made the mistake of buying some aftermarket part, Mebatech or something such thing I got off of eBay. This thing only lasted a few years. I would not recommend doing that because now I have to do this job again. So I've ordered a part from the Mazda part, which costs twice as much, but I really don't want to have to do this again. So the other problem with the aftermarket part, this piece here, the stud was too long, so I ended up having to use washers to get the bolt to work, to tighten enough. The one from Mazda will have a shorter stem on this, and I won't need these washers, which are rusting out anyway. So the hardest part of this job is breaking this loose from this front arm. It's underneath here. You can see the ball joint sticking up through there, but getting this thing to drop down is the most difficult part of this. But I've got a handy dandy kit borrowed from AutoZone, which I've used on this job before. It has an assortment of pullers and such, so we'll find the right one and use that. Alright, the trick to this that's worked for me in the past is to tighten this puller. I got the big one on here. Tighten this down hard, tight, and then whack this knuckle with a hammer, a big heavy hammer. Now I've still got my brake rotor on here, which is kind of in the way, and I don't want to damage it. So we'll see. I may end up having to take this brake rotor off to do this, but I'm going to give it a shot without it. So that's what we have right now. All right, I broke it loose by whacking it with this hammer. I was about to take the caliper off, but I was able to carefully hit here, and also hit the side of it here and here, and behind the puller back here as well, alternating and just really whacking the hell out of it, and then tightening some more, and whacking it. I went through that process about 3 or 4 times, and it finally popped. So good. So here's the new part from Mazda. Always check it and make sure it's right before you go and remove the old one. I'm halfway through, but I thought I'd check now. So the part that's worn out is this part back up in here. This didn't last, so all right, now we're going to remove this bolt, and then we're going to have to remove, it's a long bolt with a nut on the end of it. The trick to this is to get a wrench, 17mm wrench, up here on the on this side of the right side, where it's just a bolt on the end of the long nut on the end of the long bolt, and put a wrench on there that will then, when this thing starts turning, will be blocked by this bar here, so it won't turn. And now we were going to loosen this side. Again, make sure you take note of where the little notches are. I took a photograph of that before. That way you won't have to realign your car right after. I'll take this wrench off here. See these little notches? Notches on the washer back there. I took a photograph to know just where that will be when I put this back together. That way I won't have to get in alignment right away. We'll put this wrench back on here. There we go. We got the wrench on. I got my breaker bar on here, and we'll break this loose with my breaker bar. Of course, it goes without saying, always spray liberally with PB Blaster beforehand to let it soak in. Okay, I had it backwards. The nut is on this end, and so the other end, which was held fast by that wrench, held the end. So now what we do is we're going to tap this through the other side. Now it's a tight fit, and you're going to have to scrape up against the inside of this cover, wheel well cover. But I've done this before. It's not necessary to actually remove the cover. It's tight and you're going to have to tap it, but it will get through there. So this washer was on there like this. I took that off as I tapped it through. Now I've tapped in this far. I have a punch that I normally use, but I can't find it, so I'm using a screwdriver. Phillips head. Be careful not to damage the threads on this thing as I push it through. And once it comes through the other side, then you're going to need to turn it, get your wrench on there and turn it, because this washer, which is actually attached to the end of the bolt head, is eccentric. It's bigger on one side than the other, so you want to put the small side toward the inside of the wheel well, so that it will scrape by if you keep tapping it. And there it is. You can see it's sort of lopsided. So this side here scrapes up against the inside as you hammer it from that side, but it does fit. So then when we put the new link in, we're going to push it back in that way, hammer it back through, and then put it back together. Now I have to pull this piece out of here. It may take a little bit of prying to get it out of there. I'll try it with prying it out with a screwdriver. Getting bit by bugs, so I'm going to have to put on some bug spray in a minute, but I was able to pry this thing up with a screwdriver under the bottom here, and then push it down like this and get it up out like that. There we go. Now I can pull it out. It's a good idea to wash your car before you do this. I did not. All kinds of dirt back here, salt, because I live in New York. Clean all that stuff out of there. The control arm. Alright, I used my torque wrench and torqued it to 58 to 85 foot-pounds is what they call for in the 58 to 86 in the service manual. Got my old-fashioned torque wrench here, but it does the job. Also, make sure you've got the wrench on the other side. Make sure you don't get anything slipping. Get that thing slipping, so you tighten it up and put it on the notches that that it was on when you removed the old one, and your alignment should be the same. Mazda didn't give me a castle nut this time, and this is the original one, but without a washer, the hole is too tall for the what do you call it, cotter pin to do any good. So I'm going to put a washer back on there. It should be stainless steel or something. But for now, I'm going to put this old washer back on, and I think that'll be good for the cotter pin. All right, this one has a little less of torque. (41 to 59 foot-pounds). So we got this up to, got it up to about 55. So we're gonna, the holes line up, so we're gonna put in our cotter pin. Losing the light here. Going to tighten up this bracket that holds on the brake cable, or anti-lock brake cable. Yeah, tighten that back up. All right. And now we're ready to put the wheel back on. Okay, we've got the wheel back on, and remember that the wheel was just shaking and rattling back and forth. Boy, it was terrible going down the road too. Anyway, tight, very, very tight now. Nothing moving at all. So that lateral link was just worn out and solid now. Nice. All right. I probably saved about 400 bucks. The part was about 115, 120, something like that. And it took me, I don't know, several hours to do this, but it's fixed. So that's it. Now I just have to clean up all this crap. The control arm.